This podcast is brought to you by UPS. Now one of the world's largest package delivery companies, UPS started out as a small business too, so they have the expertise and experience to make international shipping easy for your business. Find out more at www.ups.com/SMB.
Hello, my name's Tim Adler and I am the editor of smallbusiness.co.uk. On today's Small Business Snippets podcast, we're talking to Keith Abel, chairman of Freddie's Flowers and founder of Abel Cole, the organic door-to-door vegetable box delivery business that became a phenomenon in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Keith's going to be talking about how he began the business, literally as a one-man band, how it grew, and the lessons he learnt along the way and the advice that he would have for small business owners. Keith, I know that for you this is a long story, but where did the idea for Abel Cole come from?
So back in the days of Margaret Thatcher and the miners' strike, I was at Leeds University and I went on a trip with a couple of people you know to Africa, and we missed our flight back and we had to get another one, and so I had to borrow some money, and that basically was my terms grant cheque. And so I went up to Leeds with no money during the miners' strike, got a job selling potatoes door to door, and I had sold fire extinguishers from the age of 16, and I was taught how to be a good door to door salesman. So I went in to see this guy who was building up potato rounds, a bit like milk rounds.
Right.
And I said to him, "I'm the best salesman you've ever employed." And he went, "Right lad, well I know somebody who can sell 85 bags of potatoes in a day, how many can you sell?" And I said, I'll sell 100. He said, "You're done. You get 100, I'll give you 50 quid. You get 99, I'll give you a nout. You up for it?" And I went, "Yep, definitely." 10 o'clock at night I was out there. So anyway, I was very good at it. I could sell 100 bags in a day, I'd get 50 quid, my rent was 13 quid, beer was 50p a pint, and fags were 50p a packet. So for a whole term, I lived on my Saturday job, selling potatoes door to door. I left Leeds, I went to law school, I passed my law exams, I went to bar school, I fell in love, unrequited, concentrated a little bit too much on that, not enough on the exams, failed my exams, furious father, kind of kicked me out. And I thought, okay, and those days no minimum wage. So do you remember, you're sort of £23.50 an hour price tagging Christmas cards in the basement of Selfridges.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't face it, so I thought, sod it, no one's doing this in London. So I got together with my mate Abel Cole, who was at uni with me. I nicked 2,000 quid off my brother, because he'd been travelling for a year, and he had that much left over in travellers' checks. He was in IT,
Right.
so he's quite wealthy. In those days you had travellers' checks. I forged his signature, went and cashed them. I gave him a share in the business. I bought a ton of potatoes, a batch of plastic bags, a little clipping machine and a van for 300 quid. And I rented the basement of someone's house in Catford. And that day, Paul and I bagged up 150 bags of potatoes and sold them. So of course, by the end of Monday, we hadn't just sold 150 bags of potatoes at a markup of 2 times. We built up a potato round. So the next Monday, Paul went to deliver the potatoes to the previous lot. I went and set up round 2. Well, by Christmas, we had 4 vans on the road, each of them costing 300 quid, so they were reliable. So when we moved to this organic, we thought, oh, okay. I remember thinking, well, what should we charge for them? We thought, well, if no one's asking, why don't we charge it at a price where we know we'd actually make some money? We were never making any money. We were living on 70 quid a week. So we whacked the prices up a bit. Customers really liked them, talked about them. We started writing about organic farming. They were Soil Association certified. Soil Association was gathering some momentum. Suddenly, Mr. and Mrs. Middle Class of Wandsworth say, any chance of some other vegetable? So I turned round to the organic farmer and I said, how would you feel about throwing a few vegetables in a box? I think actually he suggested it to me. And I went, yeah, it's a great idea. And I remember we got this box and we said, well, how much should we charge for it? We went, 8 quid? So we just went out, we called it the Essential Organic Veg Box.
So at what stage had the business got to when you thought we need if we're going to really grow, we need to bring in external investment.
So we didn't.
Okay.
This was the exceptional thing about this business, and I'll explain to you why. So we just started with that £2,000. I got loans, my sister loaned me some money, my dad loaned me some money, but it was all little, small loans. What we discovered in about 2003, when the business was turning over about £1.5 million, was that if we put out a leaflet, it was a multicoloured leaflet, and it said truly fresh organic produce straight from the grower to your table, with an 0800 number underneath it. If we put 1,000 of those out through letterboxes in, broadly speaking, better off areas, we would get 3 customers. And those 3 customers would have bought from us 3 times before we had to pay for the printing or the Royal Mail to distribute it. And that was the equivalent of finding a fruit machine that you only had to put the money in after you'd had your winnings. So when we discovered that, we decided to experiment small, and we put out 6 million leaflets, and we trebled in size in 6 months. And basically we had negative cash flow. You know, we didn't need cash to grow. It was the opposite. As we grew, the cash just piled up. So we could buy all of our vans with cash. We bought our warehouse with cash. We could pay for it. We were just generating vast amounts of cash. And as we got bigger, we were paying the post office later, the printers later, and all the money was just pouring in. So it was a brilliant business. It never took a penny of external investment, and we built sales up to 35 million. And it had been unbelievably hard work.
And what kind of hours had you been working at the start?
Right at the start, we would get to the market at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd get back to the warehouse at 5:30. We'd pack spuds till 8. We'd go out and have a big breakfast. We'd be door knocking and collecting money till 6. We'd go home at 7:30, and we were doing that for months. I mean, it was really, really exhausting. You know, I was always getting into the warehouse for sort of 6:30 to open up. You know, with Paul, it was very, very, very long hours, and it was very stressful. And you know, a lot of the time we didn't know what we were doing, but we were just tenacious. You know, we were hustlers. We just kept going. Whatever happened, we kept going. We kept trying.
What do you think the most important quality of an entrepreneur is?
I've discussed this with loads of friends who run successful businesses. We're all in complete agreement. The number one thing is tenacity. So if you've got a wall that you've got to get around, some people go to the right and they can't find a way around it to the right. Some people go to the left and they can't find a way around it. In fact, they find that it goes circular, this wall. And they try to climb over and it's got barbed wire on the top and they can't get through it. And a lot of people just go, okay, that's it, there's a wall, I'm stuck. But the entrepreneur tries to dig underneath it, and then he realises he can't quite dig underneath it, and so he blows it up. And it's that sort of, you know, well, I don't care, I'm going to find a way to do this, that I think is the difference between people who survive, and it is about surviving, and those that don't. There have been lots of times where you just sort of thought, okay, that's it, we're done. And I've always said no. I've always been prepared to ring up the supplier and say, can you give me another month? Or in fact, one supplier, when we were bust, and the Inland Revenue put my house up for sale, and we were completely against the wall, I just said, I'm not going to pay you, but I'm going to keep trading and I will pay you back eventually.
And is this pre-private equity?
Oh yeah, this is way before that. This is in the late 90s, which is when...
So there was a cash flow problem?
Absolutely, yeah. And that was because we weren't being detailed enough with our accounting. So that's the second tip, you know, to somebody, is, you know your numbers. You know, have a good bookkeeper accountant giving you month-end figures every month so you know, otherwise you're flying blind.
Today's opportunities for your business are borderless. As a global shipping provider, UPS is here to help your business capitalise on growing local and international markets and reach new customers across its global network. Find out more at www.ups.com/SMB.
Okay, so there you are. Along comes Mr. Private Equity.
Yeah.
I can take this all off your hands and you can walk off into the sunset with your jacuzzi and your Porsche.
Yeah.
Happy days. What happened?
So in those days it was called a leveraged buyout. Very simply what they do is they come up to you and they say, can we buy your house? And you go, yeah. And they say, right, Mr. Bank, will you lend me the money to buy that house? And they go, yeah, sure. But if you don't pay the interest back, then we're going to take over the business. So they did a lot of leverage. They put in £20 million worth of debt. And obviously you don't get all the money on day one, you get promise notes for the future. And then they take over running it, and they run it their way, not your way.
But surely you were integral to the business.
No, I brought in a team underneath me, and so they were the management buyout team. And they were inexperienced, didn't know how to deal with the investors. And it quite quickly unravelled. And Lloyds Bank said, right, give me the keys, we'll take over the business. And this was in 2008, when they were doing that to a lot of businesses in the financial crisis. And they need people to run them. So I got a phone call one day when I was out, I was out skiing. I was turning up once a month to board meetings, thinking they were all buffoons, and carrying on with my life. And this chap from Lloyds said, would you meet me for breakfast? And I said, look, I don't think I'm going anywhere near that business, but I'll certainly have breakfast with you. And I was expecting him to say, you give me half the money back and then you can have the whole business. And I was thinking, I'm not going to do that. They've run it into the ground. But he just gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. He said, I'll give you 40% of the business for nothing. And I'll reduce the debt, which has now got to 28 million, down to 10 million. Well, it was a no-brainer.
So you go back in.
Go back in.
How long did it take you to turn the business around?
18 months. Best fun of my life. We took sales. Sales have gone back from 35 million to 27 million. In 18 months, with no investment, we took them from 27 million to 45 million.
And how did you do that?
We were pretty brutal. We did a massive cost-cutting exercise. We had a marketing team with about 20 people in it. Well, as far as I was concerned, they were a non-marketing team because sales were going backwards. So we just got rid of all of them. It was much easier, just everybody go. We got rid of layers of middle management. And we printed one leaflet. You remember I told you the leaflet worked? Well, they'd stopped leafleting, so I printed a leaflet, and it was one of the most corny strap lines I've ever come up with, and I'm so proud of it. It was for an autumn campaign, and it said, Abel Cole turned over a new leaf. Because our reputation had gone downhill. The boxes were crap. And we put all the savings from all these employees into the boxes and made sure they were and spoke to the growers and said, look, you don't want us to go bust. We need deals. I know you've never charged me more than 50p for less than 50p for a cauliflower. I need it for 40p, and I promise you I'll be buying from you next year, and you can charge me 55. So we went around, did deals with everyone we could. We put together, I can honestly say, the best organic veg boxes that have ever been delivered. Then did this massive marketing campaign, again paid for 6 weeks hence. It was due to go out and be delivered on a Tuesday. It was our final throw of the dice. If it worked, happy days. If it didn't work, we were going to go bust, but at least we were going to go bust, I said to everyone, with a bloody good product that we were proud of, and we'd given it our best shot, and we were taking over a really knackered business. Phones rang off the hook. Customers got a fabulous product. We let that go for about 3 months, then we did quite a significant price rise, because the customers were happy, and we needed to make some money. So prices went up, sales carried on climbing through the ceiling. And the business went from losing money to making 4.5 million a year in 18 months.
But when you were there during your second phase, you employed a young guy called Freddie Garman.
That's right. When I'd left the business and was having my time out, Ted was still running it, he rang me up and said, Keith, my parents were florists, and I'd quite like to do what you did with veg boxes, but with flowers. And I just remember, I immediately thought, that is a brilliant idea. He said, how do I get started? And I said, well, you're going to need a van, and why not have a bit of fun and get a milk float? And you're going to need to move back in with your parents because you're going to be broke for a couple of years. And you need to buy a tent where you can turn it into a warehouse. And I'll lend you some money and we'll give it a go. And if it works, I might invest in it. And I'll help you, because that's how I started it. So dear old Freddie's very hard working, and we worked out he needed about 10 grand. So I wrote to some lawyers and said, what would you charge for this agreement? They said £10,000 plus that. Right. So we ended up doing the agreement with Freddie sending me an email saying, dear Keith, thanks for lending me 10 grand, I'll try and pay you back. And there was no investment agreement because there wasn't an investment. I was just saying, you're a nice young lad. I think this is a great idea. I bet it'll work. Well, 2 months later, he was doing about 75, 80 deliveries a day. Again, up at 4 a.m, packing the flowers in his sitting room, going out on the milk float, bashing on doors in the evening, getting more customers, bringing a couple of friends in.
So what's the timeline here? When are we talking about?
So that was September 2014. We just had our 7th anniversary. So between September, October and November, Freddie marked down every door he knocked on, what response he got, how many customers he got, how often they wanted to order, and when they stopped ordering. Ted and I went and put that into a great big model that we'd used for our subscription business before, and worked out roughly how much money we think we needed to build the business up. The arrangement we came to was that I would put the money in, largely by loan note. Ted would put the time in, and Freddie would do all the work. So that's in April of that year, we put the money in, April 2015, and off we went. For the first year, we didn't even have a website. So we slowly, built the website, got it going.
So the business is growing and growing and growing, everything's going well, and then COVID hits.
Yep.
Now, if you've got a door-to-door business...
Yep. And we thought, well, what should we do? We're going to go bust, or we're going to double down? Well, we just started digital marketing. At the beginning of COVID, every other company in the planet just went, and stopped marketing. So marketing digitally became very cheap. So we thought, okay, well, we're currently spending X amount of money per week on our face-to-face team. We don't have to spend money on them now. We'll spend all of that money on digital marketing. And in a period of 6 weeks, the business went from run rate sales of around about 20 million to 44 million in 6 weeks.
Could you just explain what a run rate sale is?
The weekly sales multiplied by 52.
Okay.
We basically doubled in size in 6 weeks.
Did you find, what were you trying to do through the social media marketing? Was it brand awareness? Was it
No,
sales?
it was very much customer acquisition.
Okay.
It was sign up today and get your first 2 boxes at half price. It was sign up today and we'll send you a free vase.
So this is interesting for our readers. Do you think what social media is good at is sign-ups?
I think that when you're small and you're hustling, you've got to really focus on methods of acquiring customer that you can measure the payback, the lifetime value, the return on investment. It's only when you're much bigger and you've got bigger investment, which is where we're at now, that you can start really spending the significant budgets that are needed to build brand awareness.
But you've said elsewhere that another thing you realise that it's only when you really start paying the social media companies the big money that the algorithm starts getting behind you.
Yeah, that is the case. But at the same point, if you're clever, if you use the right influencers, if you hustle, if you've got a small budget, you've got to hustle a bit. And if social media is too expensive, you've got to find other ways of getting your message out there.
Okay, so we've moved now. We're moving away from the pandemic. In July, you had a $60 million vote of confidence in Freddie's Flowers through this new investment. What do you want to do with that money?
So it's interesting. We're really blessed. We've got a fantastic new investor. They're not a PE fund. They're not a fund. They are entrepreneurs. The money's from entrepreneurial families. And they call themselves the Craftery because they're a factory of crafters, of people with specific skills. And what they're doing is they're teaching us the skills that we don't have. And they're explaining to me where they feel, it's entirely up to us, but where they feel that money should be invested. And the strategy really is a fewfold. It is to make sure that we've got the best people in the most senior positions where we have weaknesses. So we've done a capability study. We know we're very capable there. We need more capability there. And the particular area we need it in is brand and brand building. And so we are looking to recruit some senior people who've done that before in what's called CPG, consumer packaged goods. And a significant amount of budget over the next few years will be built in the different geographies, just building brand awareness. So we'll be investing in that. And the other way we're investing it in is geographic expansion. We're in Germany. We're about to open a big warehouse in Germany, in southern Germany, start doing our distribution on our electric bikes. And in November, we're going to launch in Los Angeles.
I mean, it's interesting you're saying that one of the things that you're aware of is weaknesses in the team. And I think that even at a micro level, small business level, something I've noticed is that entrepreneurs, when they're looking to recruit, they recruit people that they're looking in their own image.
Yeah.
And that seems to be such a mistake.
It really is.
What you don't, that's exactly what you don't want to do.
So there's a great thing called Myers-Briggs, or Belbin's another one. But let me put it simply. I think the easiest way to describe a successful business is like a rugby team. Much more than a football team, because in a rugby team, the prop forward is a totally different shape to the guy on the wing. He's got a totally different set of skills. And if you're a prop forward in your business and you go and recruit another prop forward because you like him and you're both big beer drinkers and that's what you do and you've got the same sense of humour and you're the same type, you're just never going to get anywhere. And my blessing at Abel Cole was recruiting a woman called Ella Heeks. And I was in my late 30s, she was in her early 20s. She was a she, I was a he. She had all the skills about being detailed, about following things through, about taking notes furiously. I had all the madness of firing out 50 ideas a minute. And she would know which ones to capture and which ones we would do, and at the same point say no, and I'm not going to do that. So those are the two big skills that any business needs to have to start off with.
Okay, so last question. Looking back, well, you're still in the middle of your career, but would you say that there is one piece of, do you have a personal business philosophy or a piece of advice that somebody told you that you think, yeah, that's true?
Very early on, when things weren't going well and I was thoroughly depressed and all my friends were being frightfully successful in their careers and I was absolutely broke, I got advised by a man who explained to me that my unhappiness spreading to everyone else in the business was toxic, and that I was a nice guy and people liked working for me, but I needed to basically cheer the up and I needed to look after how they were feeling, and that if everyone was in a good mood, then they do brilliantly. For the last 30 years that I've been doing business, I've always taken very seriously, I've not always got it right, but I always take it very seriously how to make sure it's a great place to work. What a great place to work is, making sure that the team all know what's going on within the business, that they sign up to it, that they enjoy it, that people are promoted internally, that people feel that it's a fair place to work, where they're treated with respect, that they're looked after, they know what's going on, they know what the next steps are. And that happy environment, or culture as it's called, really makes a difference. You know this, when a new restaurant opens up, if it's got a stressy owner and a stressed out checkout girl who doesn't know quite what she's doing, you just think, oh God, this is a nightmare. If it's got some fantastically flamboyant, smiley person and the food's 20 minutes late and it's their opening night, you want to go back there, don't you? And I think that's what it's like for a small business.
Thanks to Keith for joining us today. Remember, you can always follow us at Small Business UK on Twitter or at Small Business Experts on Facebook. And we'll see you next time.